When you think about it, how do we really measure success? For an athlete, it's pretty simple, right? It's the wins. For a CEO, it's the bottom line. But what about an academic researcher? Well, for a long time, the answer has been surprisingly simple, and, as a lot of people are now saying, deeply flawed. So today, we're going to dig into that and explore a whole new way to think about the value of knowledge itself.
And this quote really sets the tone for our whole conversation. It's basically a call to action. It's saying, hey, instead of just pointing out what's wrong with the current system, the what is, we should be putting on our architect hats and actually designing a better one. It's a huge mindset shift, right? Moving from being just a critic to being a creator of a better future for academic research. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll tackle the main issue, what we're calling the A as an A problem. Then, we'll look at how thinking like a designer can help. After that, we'll get into the 3 pillars for building a better future. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at the journey ahead.
All right, let's dive right into the core issue here. For decades, really, there's been this one single idea that's completely shaped how academic research gets judged. And it's a super simple phrase, but oh man, it has these massive and, frankly, pretty frustrating implications.
And here it is, the A journal mindset. So what does that mean? Well, the A is like the top grade, right? It's for the most elite, top-tier journals. And the whole idea was, if you get published in an A journal, then by definition, your research must be high quality. Simple enough? So universities just ran with it. They started using this one metric to decide on promotions, tenure, you name it. I mean, it's straightforward. It's easy to count. But you have to ask, is it actually right?
And it turns out the consequences of this one simple rule are, well, deeply frustrating for a lot of people. Scholars are pointing out that it really narrows the field. It basically incentivizes researchers to pick safe topics that are easy to publish instead of tackling the messy, complicated, real-world problems we actually need solved. It just creates this super high-pressure environment where the brand name of the journal can end up mattering more than the actual substance of the research. That's a huge problem.
So this all just forces us to ask a really fundamental question. Is a journal's brand name really the best way to measure what a study is truly worth? And if the answer is no, then we desperately need a better way.
Okay, so how do we find that better way? Well, the path forward that's being proposed actually borrows a really cool, proactive approach from fields like engineering and design. It's called thinking like a designer. Design thinking completely reframes the problem. See, it's not about just complaining about what's broken. It's about actually envisioning a better future and then rolling up your sleeves to build it. Think about it. An engineer doesn't just stand around critiquing inefficient cars. They go out and design a better one. And the idea here is we can apply that exact same mindset to how we value research.
And this whole approach really just boils down to 2 core steps. Step 1, understand what is, the current reality, that A journal mindset we just talked about. But step 2, and this is where it gets really exciting, is to create what can be, to actually design a new system that reflects the true value of research. So what would a system like that even look like?
Well, this new designed future really rests on 3 crucial pillars. And these aren't just some abstract, fuzzy ideas. No, they're a concrete blueprint for how to turn this vision into a reality. So let's break them down one by one.
All right, pillar number 1. This one tackles the absolute root of the issue. What do we even choose to measure? If we all agree that publishing in an A journal is just too narrow, then what should the new criteria be? This is what's called the criterion problem, and it's all about fundamentally rethinking how we define what success even looks like in research.
Now, solving this means we have to ask some pretty tough questions, like what are the right criteria? Should it be societal impact? Should it be practical use for businesses? Maybe it's about influencing policy. And how in the world do you reliably measure these abstract ideas like rigor and quality? Plus, should the criteria even be universal for everything? I mean, evaluating a professor for tenure is a totally different ballgame from ranking an entire university. That one-size-fits-all approach is exactly what got us into this mess in the first place.
But look, even if we came up with the absolute perfect criteria, that's still not enough. Pillar number 2 recognizes a critical reality. Real change requires buy-in from everyone involved. That means you have to align the interests of every single stakeholder in the world of academic research.
And who are we talking about here? I mean, the list is huge. It ranges from the scholars and university administrators to the students, both current and former, all the way to the organizations that actually use the research. Heck, even society at large, governments, policymakers. They all have a stake in this.
And you guessed it, each of these groups has totally different priorities, so aligning them is a massive, massive challenge. But it's absolutely essential if any new system is ever going to work.
Okay, so we've got new criteria and we've got stakeholder alignment. But there's still one crucial piece missing: leadership. This better future isn't just going to magically appear on its own. Nope, it has to be actively built and implemented by the people who actually have the power to make change happen.
And this leadership has to come from all levels. We're talking senior scholars mentoring the next generation. We need journal editors to step up and change their criteria. University administrators need to completely rewrite the reward systems. And of course, professional organizations can set new standards for the whole field. It's really a distributed model, where everyone has a role to play in steering the ship in the right direction.
So, let's take a breath. We've looked at the problem, we've talked about the design mindset, and we've laid out the 3 pillars for a solution. So, where does that leave us? Look, the path forward is definitely complex, but the outlook isn't despair. Actually, it's one of cautious optimism. And I want to be clear, this isn't just some fantasy, some academic pipe dream. The journey to create a more meaningful way to value research, it has already begun. And the optimism comes from the belief that this movement is ultimately going to build a system that just works better for everyone, for scholars, for students, and for all of us in society.
You know, this whole conversation about academic research, it isn't just for academics. Not at all. It's really a case study in a challenge that's universal. Think about it. In our own jobs, in our organizations, we're all faced with metrics for success. And so the real question is, are we measuring the right things? Are we actually capturing true value? Or are we just measuring what's easy to count? Because in any field, asking that one question, how do we measure what truly matters? That's the very first step toward building a more meaningful future for all of us.